not exactly hidden. She was in a minor panic. As an agent of Lady Ruth, there was always some minor disaster or another. The machinations and games of the nobles never truly ceased, and as the seneschal of Lady Ruth, it was their quiss's job to keep dealings with the landed nobles and the battle nobles as straight as possible to avoid either a war or the wrath of the Empress. Thankfully, Lady Ruth was as wise as she was young to the games of politics, and was eager to avoid the fate that had nearly killed her mother and had passed the throne to her. She had surrounded herself with many advisors and wiser figures to help her navigate the utter danger of noble life, and now things were getting unusual. The Empress and many sorcerers were on the move. They had moved with subtlety, but subtlety only gets one noticed by the courts and nobles, especially if one has a competent spy mistress as Lady Ruth does and a historian, like their Quiss, who had spent her youth studying the history of sorcerers and their sheer impact on the politics of Cerbo. Having a large chunk of a dark forest within one's homeland tends to raise curiosity and caution, a not unreasonable one, as all around the coasts of Cerbo sorcerers had been seen in the company of princesses. This had Lady Ruth asking the Empress, very politely, if there's something she should know about. The answer had been as vague as it had been terrifying. The sorcerers were furious, and she had sent her princesses to accompany them and attempt to contain the damage. That by itself was enough. That their Quiz's first impulse was to hide under her blankets and wait for the screaming to stop. But then she had thought about it and had reported how odd it was to Lady Ruth. A sorcerer in a fury acts quickly and decisively. Oftentimes the fury is something old and forgotten about by the transgressor, but a deeply and personally nursed hatred on the part of the sorcerer. But things had been so contained, so controlled, more akin to special forces or the assassins of other races. The sorcerers moved subtly. Oddly dressed men with the forest wrapped around them, accompanied by battle princesses in their royal finery. Sometimes there wasn't even damage or someone vanishing, as those more controlled in their fury might inflict. They would just appear somewhere, appear to glare at some figures and then vanish. No one knew what to make of these strange movements, but it was always the same. An undoubtable sorcerer wrapped in the dark wood, accompanied by a battle princess in good standing. That the sorcerers had apparently shorn their horns and tails, or hidden them, but it could go either way with sorcerers, was terrifying in implication. Either other races were learning the arts, meaning that there was likely to suddenly be a great many more sorcerers, or something had made a point of hunting the sorcerers and they were attempting to retaliate with the aid of the Empress' personal army. Either way, terrifying. Something that she can't push from her mind as she beholds the strange duo on the rooftop. A dark mane of hair pulled back into a bun, a pearlescent gown for a dress, and a slim but unimaginably confident figure for the princess, and a scrappy, scruffy figure, his clothing the tones of the earth and both tough and practical, with living leaves and vines woven along it. His shoulders and upper torso are covered in a blanket of moss that moves like a cape that he'd outgrown as a tiny child. The sheer contrast is nearly enough to give her whiplash as both figures glance in her direction. The princess dismisses her, and the sorcerer smiles. He has a bowl of something in his lap and is using a pair of twigs to scoop up its contents and eat it. "Hello there. Is something the matter?" the sorcerer asks between bites. She likely has been sent to see exactly what's been tripping all the bioscanners. How you can eat that madness is beyond me. What? Taco salad's awesome. The salt content is obscene. The chemicals in there would freeze me to death even as I felt myself burn alive. No thank you. It's why I didn't offer you any. I know it's bad for you, but damn it, I'm hungry and I want a fire in my gut. The sorcerer volleys back. Not to mention I needed something I could eat with chopsticks. No way I'm losing that bet to that smug prick Koga. "Excuse me, but what's going on?" their Quiss asks, and gets another glance from them both before the sorcerer shrugs as he keeps shoveling down whatever a taco salad is. The sorcerers are well and truly provoked, the princess remarks. They're attempting to rise above their rage-born roots and have been confronted by someone trying to kidnap one of their youngest while he was visiting family. It should have been a moment of innocence and gentleness that made Serbo stronger without maiming her or her people. But some beings can only bring disaster to those around them, so the sorcerers are retaliating. I and my sisters in battle are with them to ensure things don't go too far. That's a chilling thought. If someone had managed to provoke multiple sorcerers, then the damage could be obscene. But what could the princesses do to stop them? Unless there are a great many more nearby she has no idea about. "And what are you doing here specifically?" she asks, and the sorcerer points out with the sticks he's been eating with to the shuttles being loaded. One of them is being used by the Orega girls to transport product and payment off-world. Product in the form of kidnapped children, payment for drugs. We're not sure which, though. The job of myself and the good princess is to act as backup just in case something goes wrong with the others already looking into things in this area. We're also extra eyes in case something causes one of the flights to panic. It's not a guarantee, but that one will be our compromised shuttle. The Orega girls? But that's just an old name that the occasional stupid gang uses to make themselves sound more competent than they are. No, they're not. We thought so at first, but we traced the attempted kidnappers to a safe house that had a money trail to several major banks. The owner led us to several other bank owners, and the trail just grew wider and wider. The Orega girls are alive, organized, and just beneath the public eye. The idiot gangs using their names are their lowest of the low. We've uncovered a library's worth of blackmail that they've used to keep themselves away from scrutiny. The princess notes, and suddenly, the sorcerer twitches. "Shit," he says, putting aside his bowl and chopsticks. Their quiz risks a look into it, and it seems harmless. Definitely not something an Apuk could eat, though. Too much plant matter. It would go down disgustingly and come out even worse. One of the shuttles blasts into movement and hurriedly closes its cargo bay doors. It lurches upwards as below them the doors of the building are flung open with a roar. "Yep, he's pissed." "Is that Morg Archon?" their Queen demands in shock as one of the most recent sorcerers to emerge from the dark forest races towards the shuttles below her. "Yep, but he hasn't asked for help yet. He's just pissed off that he's been found out so easily." The sorcerer remarks as he stands with a foot on the ledge, ready to leap. We have at least smoked out which one it was. Apparently he was confirming things when someone tied to the Orega girls overheard him and told them to go. So what's his big plan to down the shuttles? He did nothing in the process of his investigations. If his plan fails, I've got a couple backups I already set up. But we need this big and noisy to get all the attention we can. He remarks, and there Quiz flinches as Morgarkun, the man that personally tried to besiege the capital of Serbo by himself, rips up a chunk of the landing pad 3 times the size of the ship and hurls it after the fleeing shuttle. The sorcerer next to their Quiz scowls at the sight before grinning as he tracks its velocity and apparently likes what he's seen. "That's going to kill so many people," the princess mutters in horror. "It'll hit the upper part of the Jawbone mountain range. There are no towns in that area, and even if it causes an avalanche, the casualties will be minimal if they exist at all," the sorcerer says as the shuttle rises up. Still, he promised at least 3 solid plans, and sneaking failed, smashing failed. Where's the third morgue? They feel the axiom twist and shift, and there's something rising up from the gouged hole in the landing pad. It seems small and thin, and the sorcerer outright cackles at the sight of Morg Arkin collecting it into a single small stick. Oh, this is going to be good. Clever." The sorcerer notes and picks up his meal again and begins to all but inhale it as if his eating somehow expresses his eagerness. What's he done? the princess demands, and the sorcerer chuckles. Just watch, he says, pointing even as Morg Arkin throws the stick like a tiny spear, and it launches with enough force that there's a sonic boom followed by an unholy crashing clang as it embeds itself into the underside of the shuttle. While impressive, that won't drop the shuttle. The princess remarks somewhat dryly. Keep watching, the sorcerer says as he finishes his meal and tucks the bowl away under his moss. The ship suddenly dips and buckles before beginning to freefall entirely. Then, as it falls downwards, branches burst from the sides and engines and front bridge to unfurl gigantic leaves that slow its fall, even as the stick grows larger and larger as it reaches for the ground with gnarling, grasping roots. In less than a minute, there is a towering tree with a shuttle tangled up through its branches, and the sorcerer is outright applauding as he stands up and hops off the building. The princess follows, and their Quiz briefly panics before jumping off herself and then flailing as her nerve breaks. The landing pad below suddenly bursts into enormous flowers that break her fall and let her down gently. "You okay?" the sorcerer asks. What's going on?" she demands, and the princess gestures for her to keep up. She rushes forward and matches pace. "We're hunting. Right now we need to give our prey a good scare and get them to reveal themselves and scatter." The princess answers, and to hear that is chilling. "Not much for the warrior ways, are you? I didn't expect you to suddenly panic like that," the sorcerer remarks in a chiding tone. "No, I've preferred my battles and wars to be in written form and not something I'm in the middle of," she admits, and the sorcerer nods as he walks up to Morg Arkin, who's standing with his arms crossed and simply observing the damage he caused. "So we've even got a professional witness." "Excellent," Morg Arkin says, and Quiz flinches back. "And what did I do to deserve that?" You're Morg Arkin. I remember that day." Quiz says, unable to do much more but keep both the princess and the sorcerer, whose name she doesn't know, between them. "Oh, well, why are you worried then? The Empress and her elite guard hit me so hard I woke up a week later in the palace and was promptly brought to her to explain what my grievance was. She sorted it out and I've been peaceful since." Never mind," Quiz says before looking up at the shuttle with the gigantic tree growing out of it. "Come on, you're the type to chat about this, I presume. It would be best if you saw this." Morg Arkin remarks, suddenly vanishing, and the sorcerer sighs. "Ma'am, if you want to figure out what's going on, please take my hand," the sorcerer says. Quiz just stares for a moment as the princess holds his wrist to allow Quiz room to grab. She reaches forward, and when she grasps his hand, everything warps and he suddenly pulls her back away from the edge of the branch that she's now standing on. "Took your time," Morg Arkin says as he taps the edge of the downed shuttle with a knuckle. "Get our witness someplace stable, then help me. I need someone to catch." "Ma'am, please keep the lady safe," the sorcerer says promptly, all but handing Quiz to the princess and vanishing to reappear next to Morg Arkin, who then wrenches open the side of the shuttle with his bare hands. Children tumble out of the newly made hole but are quickly caught and placed down gently by the sorcerer, even as numerous leaves and branches fall out of the bay as well. The children are to the last, fast asleep with specialized restraining neck braces on. Aren't these designed for livestock? Slap them on a living thing and they slip into a coma but are sustained by it? The sorcerer asks, as he casually breaks off the neck braces one after the other. They are. They also find a great deal of use in the slave industry, Morg Arkin remarks, and then thumps the side of the shuttle hard enough to send a low clang through all of it. The slaver bitches are still in there along with all their non-living product and payment. They're not going anywhere and they're not getting out unrecognized. So let's get these children home and then see what happens next. Yep, we've sunk the ship of anonymity, so let's see where the rats swim to. You keep using that word, What is a rat? A small scavenging animal with a bad reputation for carrying disease and sneaking into all sorts of food stores. They also have good instincts, so a guaranteed way to tell if things were going very badly was if the rats were retreating from the area. I suppose the comparison does make sense. Their quiz is at a complete loss for words.